Petrol companies, they do know how to distribute their petrol station. They have the numbers in their head, the ratio, whatever. So it seems to me that in order to help this move along, the government needs to set a deadline of the ban on ICE, because then they can better project the numbers. Without that, then how do you even think about, if there's a definite cut-off date, then okay, by this time we will have 600,000 EVs going to the market because that's the ban date, right? Or whatever the TIV is. Then macam the whole country we have 4,000 petrol stations, Petronas ke Shell ke, don't tahu lah kat mana letak. Is something that we need to worry about. Like you say, let the market decide. But I think the market needs that kind of certainty.
That kind of information, correct. So that's why I think in Europe and UK and some of the other countries also, they did that. It's actually, they set like a ban deadline so that then people can prepare and can plan for it. The tricky bit is actually even over there. Actually, there's a lot of pushback on that. You can see actually some of the articles being published by the industry associations representing the ICE manufacturers. This one shouldn't be a hard and fast target because you're not really saving your emissions so much and so forth. So the pushback actually helps the industry, but also it doesn't help them because it actually makes the target more fuzzy, as in less certain. So then it actually doesn't allow them to plan properly. But coming back to Malaysia, it's actually there's, in theory, kalau you set like a target ban of ICE vehicles, that could help people to plan. But I think also it's a very hard thing to make happen because there are so many interested parties with different points of views, and in order to actually get something that the majority will be happy with, there are too many discussions, too many special interests, too many, lobbying that will go on to actually make it very difficult to come to a landing on this date. So if you ask me, actually, my preference would be to leave that alone and you focus on the emissions part.
Okay. So one last question lah with the current situation right now. If there's one thing that you like the government to focus on lah on our transition to EV ni, what would it be?
I think I would look at it like not so much like the normal answer would be like, kita fokus kepada charging network, kita fokus kepada tax or proposed tax. I think that all of that actually can be resolved. These are all issues that can be resolved. The important thing is to focus on how these issues are resolved. The governance, the process. For example, in what if, let's say there's let's say whether there's a menteri in Jabatan Perdana Menteri yang diberikan KPI ni. Okay, your KPI, YB Menteri, is to make sure that by the end of 2022, there's X number of BEVs that are registered. 2023, this much. 2024, this much, and so on and so forth. This is your KPI. You be in charge of this and you are going to be held accountable. So because the menteri di Jabatan Perdana Menteri, they are able to actually coordinate and steer all the rest of the kementerian, because EV ni they span across many kementerian, as you know. So actually, we have Kementerian Alam Sekitar that kicked off the low carbon mobility blueprint. We have KETSA that is actually controlling the energy and the electricity sector. You have MOT yang ada JPJ, you have MOF yang bawa cukai, and even KPDN HEP pun ada because they are the ones controlling the licensing for the petrol stations. They are controlling, they are also monitoring the prices. So kalau ada yang profiteering, they are supposed to be looking at it. So all these different ministries actually will need a leader, someone at the Prime Minister's department to actually help them sort out all these cross-ministry issues. So to me lah, actually, like kalau lah kita really want to have a very good chance of accomplishing our targets, we need to have a better problem solving / pemantauan structure that is convened maybe every quarter, if not, kalau tak pun maybe every half a year, to actually just see what are the big issues, what are the big coordination issues. For example, if the issue is that apa namanya, the planning on the highways, for example, highway punya sign, kan sekarang ada sign ATM, sign petrol station semua tu, kalau letak EV charging punya is available at the next rest area tu pun, that one is Lembaga Lebuh Raya under Kementerian Kerja Raya. And so technically that one also needs to be going through the proper process, the approval and so on and so forth. So benda-benda macam ni, actually, that's why I think it's most important to actually have that government problem solving structure and monitoring structure to just figure out what is the problem and how do we solve it. What is the problem, how do we solve it? And make sure that benda-benda pelik-pelik ni tak berlaku lah. For example, kalau ada apa namanya, tiba-tiba we don't want, for example, can remember the early days of satellite TV, Astro dapat concession berapa, 30 tahun kerana dia boleh invest besar and provide apa namanya, the satellite, which is a very positive thing. But at that time, the risk of firing a satellite up and the money is so high that a concession made sense.
Yeah.
Now, actually, that kalau you say, a concession actually will enable the whole country to be covered in charges and everything, and nobody else can do it. I would argue it's actually no. The risk is not that high now, because you can see there are private investors that are putting their money in already with a bunch of charging point operators. So there is no need for one single concession holder to suddenly have exclusivity. So benda-benda pelik macam ni, I hope that it can be addressed by this high-level committee, so that then we can see, that may have made sense maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, but now no more already lah, because if you do that, you are extinguishing the innovation and the private businesses here. Tak guna lah. Actually, so benda-benda macam ni is actually, it's not only to address the issues, but also to head off strange ideas that might derail the adoption plan.
So basically, you think that somebody senior, somebody like the Prime Minister, should lead the steering committee or something like that?
At the very least, actually, a minister in the Prime Minister's department. Because to be fair, it's also like YB Prime Minister, dia pun banyak benda lain, and this thing also can be.
But the reason why I mentioned Prime Minister is because even in the US, until the president opens his mouth, EV wasn't even really on the radar. You know, in China, actually, obviously, it's led by the top.
Betul. At Indonesia, Jokowi himself actually. So I think that's the part. But it's almost like the Prime Minister is like the big boss. Tapi there needs to be someone who actually will be chairing the detailed meetings to make sure that the things.
He can assign some minister in the Prime Minister's department to attend the meeting lah, but he needs to be the chairman.
Exactly. Yeah, betul. So the KPI for the minister in the Prime Minister department kena lah. I mean, he is accountable to the PM. And then the PM say, kenapa lah this year kita punya target 5,000 but you only hit 3,000? Explain to me. And so he needs to explain, or she needs to explain. And hopefully this will help people take it a little bit more seriously lah. I think the big problem sekarang ni is actually there's so many ministries that are involved, and there's not enough talking between the ministries.
I think the one of the main problem is we are not building on a strong information foundation. And what I mean by that is that in order for you to say, okay, let's say we want to target this is the cut-off date, right, for ICE, for example, or you want to say this is the percentage of growth in EV that we want in every year, then people will say, where did you get that number from? Did you pull it out of thin air? So then you need to go back and say, okay, no, we got this from what? We got this from looking at the country's energy consumption and our expenses, and moving forward, we see that the world is going this direction, and therefore their energy efficiency will be going that direction, and we need to go there, and therefore we need an energy roadmap. I still go back to that energy roadmap, because as long as we don't have that, there is no strong foundation on which to build everything else. And this is why nobody is taking it seriously, because when they're questioned about the target, and they say, where did you get that number from? I don't know. I can't say, and I think that's a major problem in this country as a whole, systemically everywhere. When you don't build your argument on very strong foundation of solid data and information, then everybody can just punch you down and poke holes into your arguments, and then it gets nowhere. And we have like 3-hour discussions and go back and scratch your head and say, what did we do just now? I don't know.
Yeah. I think that ultimately what strikes me is actually, like, I just saw a small article written about Elon Musk and how he practices, like he says, first principle thinking.
Yes.
Where you actually just strip down all the things that you don't know to be a fact, right? And so I think that is a useful tool to use. For example, kalau kat Malaysia, we need to think about, okay, why do we have these targets? Maybe then the target, the calculation should be that today the land transportation sector punya emissions per kilometer is this how much CO2 per kilometer, and you break it down further. Okay, kalau heavy transport is this much, kalau passenger cars is this much, and so on and so forth. And then you would have a fairly solid basis already. So in that case, we want to say is actually, okay, it looks like kalau kita benchmark against our neighbours, Thailand Indonesia is what, Singapore is what, we have room for aggressively halving it, let's say in 2040, right? In order to halve it, and these are some of the ways that we can do it: electrify passenger cars, electrify buses, electrify lorries, and so on and so forth. So then it drives the initiatives much more clearly. And so what my old boss Idris Jalla likes to say is actually, then your true north is clear. Once your true north is clear, when problems come at you, you know what decisions to make.
Exactly.
Rather than terumbang ambing, because like you say, like, if the foundation is not clear, then you kalau ni pun boleh, then you tend to take the easy way out.
Betul. Alright, itu dia. Well, anyway, thank you very much. We've clocked 1 hour already of your time.
Alright.
Maybe you can come again on a later date to talk about, what are the exciting models that are coming, and what do you think, what kind of cars you think we should have in Malaysia? Because one of the question yang selalu readers kita tanya, of course they're quite resentful by the fact that they can't afford the cars.
Betul.
They want the cars but they cannot afford the cars, and bila dia dengar kata the tax break is only for 2 years, lagi they become more resentful, because yang ada sekarang ni yang enjoy the tax break are all really nice expensive cars that they cannot afford, and they look at it and say, apa ni dia bagi tax break, these people are already rich, they don't need tax break, aku nak tax break and I cannot get it. So that's another, maybe we can
I mean, I appreciate that view lah. I mean, it's also something that is quite real, we see every day. Hopefully we can come up with a better, or rather a more nuanced approach daripada tax break ni. Macam mana kita nak bagi, basically accelerate making the sub 100,000 ringgit EVs available in Malaysia, because these things do exist. We know that.
Yes.
Dekat China, dekat some of the, like Dacia Spring, for example, in Europe, even if you want a European car, those cars exist. Tapi also we need to make sure that people are mindful lah. Benda ni, actually, the technology is still maturing. The technology is still developing. Maybe it's better to wait a little bit for the prices to come down. And then maybe, for example, sekarang ni, just to share with you lah, my car at that time when I bought it was actually super fancy and all that stuff. Sekarang the base model EVs all have better range than my car. Right? And so maybe the longer you wait, the better deal you will get. But that one, I think, is something that is worth, like say lah, discussing in the future section.
Okay, thank you very much, Dato'. Maybe we'll see you again next time. Thank you so much.
Alright, thank you.
Alright, bye.